Dan, welcome to the show.
Right on, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I know you're busy and great to connect with you. If you wouldn't mind, just, for the listeners, they heard my kind of formal intro about you, but give us the Dan Anchetta version of how long in the biz, like roughly production, and what do you love about this business?
Right on. Cool. Yeah. So I started June 1st, 2016. And I remember that because it was the month that Brexit happened and like the whole world was in turmoil. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had just ended a career as a commercial banker at a community bank doing mostly business lending and that sort of thing. And thought I'd give this whole mortgage thing a try because I just figured there was a better way for me to spend my time and make money and provide for my family. So I thought, hey, I know how to manage relationships and I know how to make loans. So let's figure out this whole mortgage thing. So I always joke with people that I don't know the world before TRID. I didn't do a loan before TRID existed. So it's kind of maybe a blessing in disguise because it's just kind of normal.
Right.
So half the year in 2016, I was just looking at my numbers because I know you're going to ask me, did about 10 million in that first 6 months.
Wow, good.
And then 2017, I did like 13 million. 2018, I did about 20. And this year I'll do 40.
Okay, got it. So 2019, closing out on 40 million in 3 years.
Yeah.
That's a pretty quick ride. What part of the country are you in?
I'm in the Bay Area, in San Francisco Bay Area.
All right, so arguably a competitive market.
Yeah, very competitive.
Yeah, we know we've got some players up there.
Yes, in my town, they're here.
Yeah, I know, right? I've interviewed some of them in your town. What do you attribute that? That's a very fast growth, man. I mean, I talk to people who've been in the business. And by the way, how many units is that, right? Just to give some.
That's just looking at 82 units.
Okay, 82 units. Okay, so nothing, that's solid, man. What do you attribute that growth to, though, in 3 short years?
Yeah, so the big change I made this year is I hired a full-time assistant to help with my production. I like the kind of phrase of like, only do the things that only you can do. And so really learning how to delegate as much as possible so that she can take on as many of the roles within a transaction as possible. So that really all I'm trying to spend my time, it's not perfect at it, but what I'm trying to do is just spend as much of my time as possible building trust with clients and referral partners, finding the business, bringing it in. I'm the face of every transaction. I don't delegate to other people and say, this person's now your transaction coordinator. They're going to see it through to close. I'm the person through the entire process. But having that full-time dedicated assistant has just been a total game changer for me. So I was kind of on the roller coaster, do 2, do 3, do 0, do 4, do 0. And now it's been pretty consistent, somewhere between 8 and 15 loans a month. Just kind of.
Right. And we're going to unpack this. That's kind of the focus of our conversation, is the transition to hiring your first assistant.
Yeah.
I think that'll be the name of this episode.
Cool.
Before I forget, though, 2020, what are you forecasting for that? Have you built any of that out yet?
Yeah, so I was just talking to my coach about that. So I'm a Duncanite. I guess I'll just be forthright with that.
Duncanite. Love it.
So my coach is an amazing woman, Teresa Odette. If you haven't connected with her, you totally should. And she has a great business up in Lake Tahoe area. Anyway, we were just looking at the numbers. I think it's going to be 60. I think like that 5 million a month on average number is great. I'm actually in the process of thinking about the next hire, probably changing my workflow a little bit, but I think it'd be good. So kind of team of 3 would be the ideal situation for me right now.
All right, so let's unpack this assistant situation for everybody listening, seeing as you went through a transition. Take me back to like the stage or the time that you first realized you perhaps needed help, and what kind of struggles did you deal with? Did you deal with that usual conversation of, hey, I don't want to spend the money, I can't afford it, whatever? Take us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so people always ask, like, when's the right time to hire an assistant? And my answer is when you're serious about growing your business. So when I hired the assistant, I really didn't need her in terms of my production at that moment. But I had a vision for what I wanted my business to look like, what I wanted my practice to look like. So I went out on a limb and kind of talked to my manager. It's like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And he's like, okay, I don't see why you need that, but if you're feeling that strongly about it, then we'll figure that out. So I hired her and went through kind of a total restoration of my process, just like really looking at everything from start to finish. Like, what does the borrower experience look like? From my standpoint, we all sell the same product, and our rates are probably very close to each other. And our market is pretty competitive. That you're not seeing crazy differences, and really it's kind of the same stuff. So the only thing that, in my estimation, that makes me different is the borrower experience that they have, and that the whole customer experience, how I interact with them, how we communicate, how I make them feel, and that's really it. So that's my whole focus, is like, how does the borrower feel through the process? Are we connecting with them emotionally? Are we meeting them where they are and taking care of them? It's a big, huge financial decision, and our job is to give them ease and make sure that they know that they're making a good decision. So,
yeah, let me ask you a few questions then around the assistant. So you you didn't get any support financially.
Right. So exactly.
Okay. So initially, no support financially. You're like, I'm going to invest in this all on my own.
Right.
Okay. So there's that. Your willingness to, this goes back to your what you said about how do you know when it's time to hire your first assistant? It's when you realize you're committed to the business.
Right.
And you want to build an actual business, I assume, right? Not just be a quote salesperson.
Right. So I think, the cool thing about the business is that you can kind of do whatever you want to do. If you're happy doing the 2, 3, 4 loans a month, and that provides you a living, and maybe that's what you want to do, and it gives you enough time to go be with your family or do whatever you want, then that's great. You should totally do that. Right. I kind of I took a step back in that kind of coaching exercise that I've been going through, and I started looking at like big goals. Like, where do I want to be? I'm 35. It's like, where do I want to be when I'm 45? What does my life look like when I'm 50? And I had this conversation with my wife, and we kind of sat down, like, what does it look like? And then kind of peel that back and go, well, what do we need to do this year or today or in this hour to realize that bigger goal? And so when I was doing that kind of visioning, I saw that I wasn't going to get where I wanted to be doing the 2, 3, 4 loans a month. And I really wanted to commit to, really going after it and building something that could really generate wealth and can really provide for my family and, have the beautiful life. So
right. Exactly. Clarity is helpful.
Exactly.
Okay, so you're investing in your own assistant. How did you find the assistant? What processes did you go through? Did you interview a bunch of people? All that?
I interviewed nobody. She was actually a processor here within the office.
Okay.
And she was my processor, and she worked with me and probably 4 other lenders here in the team. And she was a great fit, and she wanted a little more and to grow her skill set. And so it was just a perfect match, and they backfilled her position. So those other lenders have their own processor again. Yep. They kind of do the pool process.
So you approached the company and they're like, hey, I want to take this person out of this role.
Yeah.
And they were okay with it.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, good. Nice, man. Okay. So what are some lessons learned? Because being a processor is different than an assistant.
Yeah.
And what are some lessons learned and how did her role change? Let's get specific on what she does for you to help you generate more biz.
So she still does all the processing too.
Nice.
And really the role that we added onto her day was, with the time that she was using to process for other people, she does more of the assistant work. So she does like all of the income calculation stuff where I would sit here and get it on Excel and figure out what people's qualifying income is. She does all that on the pre-approval side. She writes all the pre-approval letters.
Well, let me interrupt. Sorry. Let's back up for a minute. Then take me from the point of entry. I'm a client. I'm referred to you or whatever. You're the first call.
Yep.
Okay. Let's take us through your customer experience, seeing as that's important to you.
Totally. So usually it's a phone call that we have at first, and it's just kind of a needs analysis. Tell me basically what you're looking for. Let's make sure that we're a style match. And if you're the low cost leader people, I'll tell you I'm not the person for you. Where we have super competitive rates, but you can find cheaper. And I like to be upfront with people. Like, if you want the cheapest rate, go online, find someone that will give you bare bones experience, and you can save an eighth. Have fun. It's going to be like torture. It's going to be painful, but you can make it happen. So we have that conversation. I send them a needs list. They either apply with me on the phone, or I send them an online link. Just depends on what their comfort level is. And really in that conversation, it's about, needs analysis, timing, understanding what they're looking for, and then I kind of cater my approach to them. So some people just want to do everything over the phone and by text. Other people are like, let's get in face to face. My preference is that we get face to face, and I try to get that as much as possible. I think there's something to that. I think on one of your podcasts recently, they talk about like looking at them, and you can see if they're actually understanding physically.
Right. Visual cues. Yeah.
Whoever said that was spot on. I don't remember which one that was. But yeah, so I like to get.
So you're taking the app.
I'm taking the app.
Okay.
I take the app. I do the collection of the financial documents. Pass that over to my assistant, who actually doesn't work in the same office as I do. She's in a different office.
Okay.
And then she'll sort through all that stuff and figure out what we need. She sends me a needs list, and
you've got an advantage in that she did processing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm leveraging her strong suit, which is she knows how to process a file and package it and put it together and prepare it for an underwriter to look at. And so she kind of cuts through all that red tape and was like, I don't need taxes. This is a W-2 only file.
Wow. That was a good find to be able to get her, man.
Yeah, it's great. So she's awesome. So she streamlines the process from the beginning. So I only ask for what I really need, and she kind of heads that. All
right, so you got the 1003 of the app, and then they're going to come in or not, or you're going to do it over phone or text or whatever.
Yep.
Where are you involved in the process throughout the rest of the transaction?
So Nell, who's my assistant, she drives everything kind of behind the scenes. She's talking to the title company. She does all the other stuff.
Ordering appraisal, all that stuff.
Exactly. Basically, and she tells me what I need to do. And I am the one who actually talks to the client. So if we need something from the client, I get an email from Nell saying, I need X, Y, Z. I call the client and say, hey, we're working on a file. Here's what's going on. This is what I need from you.
Let me ask you this. That was a conscious choice for you to make those calls versus her?
Yeah. And she also, if she needs to correspond with the client or someone, it comes from my email. Because
she licensed? No, she's not licensed. But why are you choosing? Because some people choose the opposite, right? Some people choose to have their assistant call to get conditions and all that. Why are you choosing to have you do it?
Because in my personal preference, that when I'm doing business with a person, I want to do business with that person. Okay. Right. Yeah. So it always has annoyed me as a consumer when I think I'm doing business with somebody, but then their assistant or their someone or their whoever calls and they're like, hey, I'm actually the one who's doing this. For me, when I was designing it, I thought was better for my style was that I'm going to offload as much as I can behind the scenes and let other people do as much as they can behind the curtain. But in terms of the customer experience, they're doing business with me, not my assistant, if that makes sense. And it works for people. Other people have really amazing businesses where they have, I was talking to someone at an event and they're like, I don't actually do customer consultations. Like, that's really cool. That's totally your style and you should do that.
Well, and that's the beauty, like you pointed out earlier, that's the reality of this business. You can design it any way you want.
Any way you want. Yeah. And everything different markets work differently, different type of client bases work differently. And this is what I found has worked best for me and my clients.
Okay. Like that. Okay. So you're interfacing. What is your kind of your cadence or your schedule of meetings with your LOA? Like, I know some people have a daily debrief for 15 minutes. What does yours look like?
Yeah, we do like a pipeline review every day in theory.
Okay. Just over the phone or whatever?
Over the phone. Yep. And then we get together at least every other week for face-to-face. She's in probably a 20-minute drive away, so we meet in the town that's in between us and grab a cup of coffee just to have that FaceTime.
Sure.
And talk about more strategic things and just like, hey, here's the next thing I want you to take on. Here's what I'm thinking of, pipeline management wise. Here's the next exercise that we're going to go through. Here's the new, marketing initiative that we're going to take on, whatever it is. We do all that type of stuff face to face, but we're talking constantly throughout the day.
Right.
I call her in between meetings just to check in, like, hey, did this thing happen? Did that happen? That appraiser is late. Can we, get that AMC to spur them along, whatever those deals are. You know how it is.
Yeah. Okay. So she's handling the back end stuff, all that kind of, that's, again, I think I'm just thinking of what you said here. She's income calculations, which is not what I often hear with a LOA.
Yeah.
Another benefit, of course, to her knowledge base. What other types of things do you have her doing to free you up that are they not loan related, such as biz dev or marketing related?
Yeah, so she does like financing flyers. If any of my realtor partners are doing an open house or have a listing, then I'll just send her, hey, here's a new listing for so and so, and she has all these templates, and she'll actually create the flyers that are all been through marketing compliance and all that stuff.
Let me ask you a question on that, seeing as that's a hot topic, financing flyers, right? That flies around the social groups.
Yep.
Do you have agents asking for those? Do you find that they like them? Do you think that helps solidify your relationship?
Yes, all of those.
Yeah.
I think I can, in the years I've been doing it, I think I've done one deal. I got one phone call from someone who was like, hey, I picked up a financing flyer.
Right.
And I want you to do our loan. I'm like, cool. And so, I probably pays for it for the life if I ever.
Sure.
Forever. But I use that mostly as a touch point to let the agents know that I'm paying attention and as a reason to call. And, I try to touch base with my partners as much as possible and to be a value add. So I'll go work open houses and spend time with them. Mostly I'm not there. If I get a lead that day, it's great, but mostly it's about solidifying the realtor partnership and letting them know that I care, and I'll invest my Sunday afternoon to spend with them. Haven't been doing so much lately because we have a 13-week at home. 13-week at home, so I've been kind of slammed on the personal side. But.
Congratulations to that, man. Catching naps when you can, or were you the one telling me that no, you've got a good sleeper on your hands?
We have a pretty good sleeper, but we trade off in shifts. It's kind of like I'll take her for a few hours so mom can lay down and get some rest in the dark, and then we switch and
that's awesome.
We make it happen.
Okay. What else do you want to share about your assistant, your process together, things that you do, maybe something unique?
Yeah. So I think the big thing is just, we talk all the time, kind of constant communication. And I totally trust her.
That's a key point.
I trust that she is going to, I don't ask her to clock in. She doesn't work in the same office as me. I actually have no idea what she's doing at this particular moment. I trust that she's getting stuff done. And I know that she's getting stuff done because loans close on time, stuff happens. I get CC'd on emails and I see that things are going on. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that you have to trust your partners, and you have to have a relationship where you know that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, so you can do what you need to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's a key point there. Trust, for sure. And again, you've got the benefit of you had been working with her already, so you guys had that relationship. So that's nice. Smart of you to probably recognize that.
Right. Yes. No. Well, thanks. I try to use my head, but that is actually a pretty critical rule thing there. If you're hiring someone outside, that first hire has got to be right. I mean, you could really be sidelined, and your business will hurt. Your everything is going to hurt if you don't make that first hire has to be the right one. So take your time with that.
Without getting into specifics, can you share like how you keep her happy, reward her financially and otherwise, right?
So I think that's like a personality profile type situation. So another cool Duncan thing is like they did like the personality profile on me, and
You do the DISC?
Yeah, the DISC profile.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So
well, you were going to say you're a what?
I'm a high DI.
Shocker. Former wrestler, high D.
Exactly right. And she's an SC. So we complement each other, and which is great. So she, for her, like the financial reward is obviously important, just because we're all here to make money and make a living.
Sure.
Really, I have found that she likes to be part of a team, and she likes to win, and she likes to feel like the actions that she does directly impacts a positive result for our borrowers. So she gets a lot of fulfillment for that. So as she's kind of grown into the role, it's been really fun to see her grow, and for her to take on more things that she probably never thought that she would be doing, and being a little bit more, she's very introverted and trying to, like, she's pulling out of that. So it's cool to see her grow, and our relationship is really cool because she'll call me on my nonsense and be like, hey, what are you doing today? I can see your schedule. You don't have any appointments. Why don't you have appointments? You need to be out there drumming up the business. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Why aren't you doing what you're supposed to be doing? I'm like, all right.
Wow, that's cool.
Awesome.
That's very unique. I like that.
That's cool.
I'm glad you mentioned the disc for a moment because for anybody who's listening and looking at hiring, I'm a huge advocate of using a resource like the disc. There's a company that I'm a fan of. It's called WizeHire,
Okay.
WIZEHIRE, and they actually have a process where they'll help you recruit. They'll place the job ad for you out on the various job sites for like a couple $100 a month for whatever term you need. And they'll help you craft the messaging to attract that high S, that high C, or whatever.
Right.
I mean, I use the disc a lot, just to the point of like holding up here. You can see I've got my cheat sheet on the disc, right?
Yep.
You've probably seen something like that.
Totally. I have this from a different company.
Yeah.
It has the different colors and what they all mean.
Right.
And so, yeah.
So, but back to the point about your loan officer, you said she's a high SC.
Yep.
For those listeners who aren't as familiar with the disc, I mean, the values of somebody who's a high SC, their basic motivation is security, appreciation, assurance.
Right.
Let me flick on the back side or the other side here. C, basic motivation, excellence, value. They like. Now, this is relevant because we're talking about hiring an assistant. This is why using a tool like the disc will help you identify the right person, because you can get into the type of environment they want to work in, how they respond best to a leader, right? Needs, how to communicate, and blind spots and all that stuff.
Totally. No, and it's so funny because when you read, if you get like a pretty detailed report. I have mine here somewhere, but you wind up getting like a 15-page report. If you read through it and you really are open to it, you're like, yeah, that's totally me. When they're talking about the difficulties that you have and your, like you said, your blind spots, if you're honest with yourself and you read that, it's like, yeah, nailed it. It's totally true. So, and I gave that to her. I'm like, here, this is how I am, and I want to understand how you are, so that we can, meet each other's needs and do each other in business. So,
I mean, it's a good exercise. First of all, self-awareness is key for yourself, just in general in your life. If you're in a relationship with anybody, spouse, kids, all that kind of stuff, it helps to understand their personality traits.
Totally.
And one last reference I'll give to everybody is Tony Robbins actually has a disc profile on his website. It's tonyrobbins.com/disc. I've used this in the past as well. It's free. Just know that you're probably going to get some type of an offer after completing this thing.
I mean, Tony Robbins, of course you're going to get an offer after that.
All right. So just be aware of that. But if you guys want to mess around with the disc profile, check your own out. Anybody else that you work with, that'd be a smart move for you. All right. So your main source then of business is real estate agents, right?
I think it is for everyone, isn't it? No, so I think I was doing this again, the kind of coaching planning, right? So this year, probably about 60% realtor referrals, 20% past clients, and then the other 20% is kind of hodgepodge. I have a couple of attorneys that send me their complicated, divorce stuff and that type of thing, which is fun. It's a good thing to figure out. But I'm really kind of looking at the future and trying to move the needle on some of those items. I kind of don't like the idea of having heavy concentrations. I think realtor referrals are never going to go away. But I think that for me, for the future, I want to have a more diverse sources of referrals, probably, in 20% increments. If I had 20% realtor referrals, 20% past clients, 20% maybe like CPAs or financial advisors, something to that extent, where you're getting a wider range of referrals, so that when the market changes, and it will, that you kind of have all your bases covered, and you don't have a lull in your business.
Here's a question just popped in my head. No preparation. What are the activities that you enjoy doing that lead to business?
I like people. So the thing that I have found is when I allow myself to be authentic and vulnerable with people, that it attracts them to you. And I find that to be true in personal life and in business. And when I meet with a client or get a referral from someone, or try to prospect a new referral partner, we don't really talk about business because they already know what I'm there for. when I go and I have that meeting, it's really about who are you as a person? How are we a model match? Are we going to like doing business with each other? And just really to lay it all out on the line and just be like, this is who I am. This is what I'm all about. And, some people are going to like that and other people are going to shy away from it, and that's okay. And so I'm not sure if that really answered your question. I can be more specific, I guess, but
no. I mean, in general, let me ask you another follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
Then how do you primarily, let's take realtors, for example, how do you primarily get in front of them?
Yeah. So most of the realtors I work with, I've done a transaction with, meaning so they have the listing side, and we have a real specific strategy on how I communicate with a listing agent on a deal that I have the buyer. And I'll tell them up front, if it's someone, like, I'll kind of do my background check on them to see who they are and make sure that they're someone I want to be in business with. And if they are, then I'll tell them up front, like, I'm going to knock this out of the park. You're going to be blown away from your side of the transaction. And at the end, I'm going to ask you if I've done enough for me to be considered as a potential partner for your buyers.
So that's cool. You asked that up front on the intro call.
Oh yeah, I tell them up front. As soon as we're in contract, I'll tell them. I'll do my background and make sure that they're the right kind of person. And
yeah, right.
And if they are, then I'm pretty aggressive in that, and we'll tell them straight up, like, I know who you are, and like, I want to be your partner. So
sounds like straight out of Taken with Liam Neeson. I know who you are.
Exactly.
I have a special set of skills.
Well, and then it's really that follow up to make sure that they feel the love, that I'm doing something different than everyone else out here.
Well, look, it's a very much overlooked area for you adding. Well, let me ask you this: how often do you get the listing agents who's, that's great, Dan, I'm a listing agent?
I get that sometimes, and I go, that's cool. And then I guess my feeling is that there's enough business to go around.
Yeah. You're like, whatever, that's cool, fine.
If we're fit, that's great. Then we're not fit. Then that's, they're going to brush me off. That's cool. It's actually funny. I had this experience the other day that this realtor referred me a deal kind of out of the blue. Right. And so I was like, cool, this is great. And this was like maybe 6 months ago. And I followed up with them at the end of this year. It's like, hey, thanks so much for that referral. Nothing ever wound up happening with it, but just want to say thanks. And you know what? If we can get together and strategize for 2020 and see how I can be a partner to you and so on and so forth, that'd be really great. And she just fired back with this text message that was like, stop soliciting me. I'm not interested in working with you. I already have a lender. And I was just like she was pretty aggressive with it. And I messaged her back. I was like, okay, we're cool. You just had sent me something earlier this year, and I just wanted to make sure that I was following up with you. And she just totally ghosted me. And for a second I was like, oh man, that really hurts. Like that. I was like, I thought that we had something good going on here. And then I was like, you know what? We're just not a model match. And that's not someone I want to be in business with anyway. So that's cool.
And this was a realtor who sent you a deal.
Yeah. It was the most bizarre thing, but it is what it is. Things happen.
Psychological issues there, I think.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So,
all right. In prepping for this interview, I also looked at, I look for things that kind of stand out for me. So you've got a fair amount of Zillow reviews, right? 22 at this time. And I'm always curious about, are you consciously going for reviews with your clients?
I do. And kind of our process at the end of a transaction, I'll ask them to review. I have been a little sporadic in where I ask people to review as things change and algorithms and that sort of thing. So for a while it was like, go to Yelp, I thought Yelp was going to be great. And then, so that I stopped doing that a while back. And then it was Zillow for a minute. And then, actually, I think it was your podcast. The guy from Reach 150 was on or something like that, forever ago. And I was like, that sounds pretty cool. So I had some people go into there to leave some reviews. And now it's kind of like Facebook, Google, Reach 150, kind of wherever someone wants to leave a review, I'll take it.
And do you send out a post-closing email for that?
I do, yeah. Kind of post-closing email. Thanks for your business, and holler at me with questions. Here's the next time you're going to hear from me is if and when your loan gets transferred for servicing. Make sure you have payment details on that guy, and then if you have a minute, if you enjoyed our service, leave me a review. It helps my business grow. That type of message.
And how do you find the adoption on that? Pretty good. People leaving reviews.
Pretty good. Probably half of them somewhere
Okay.
that leave a review.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Let's close out here with 2020, man. What are your plans for 2020? Anything you're implementing differently in your business, whether it's marketing or process wise?
Yeah, I think it's just like I said, just trying to diversify the referral base. I think it's really honing in and continuing to learn on our process and um, continuing to develop our customer experience process, and then creating templates around pretty much everything.
Right.
I'm a big template person. I like, maybe I'm old school, but I like paper templates where you actually have to write something down and there's like a checklist of things to make sure that there's nothing missed. And as you get busier and busier, at least I've experienced, things get fuzzy and you forget details about things, and having that checklist is pretty crucial. So every process that we have, we're creating templates for. It should be a predictable process, but still with some personality and individuality behind it. I don't want to be a machine where no one feels like they're getting, catered to specifically. It's like, this is the way that we do it. You either fit it or you don't. Don't really like that. I kind of like to adapt to people as we go through the process, but in general, have a framework of how we do things.
Right.
And that's the big thing, is just continuing the momentum that we have, and I don't want to say perfecting, because that's not really possible, but really
optimizing.
Optimizing as best we can the way that we interact with the clients. I mean, it's everything from when you get a referral from somebody, what does that feel like? What does that look like? I've had this kind of pet peeve of like, oh, text my guy Dan, here's my phone number. I don't think that converts really well. So I'm working on a solution. I'll send it to you when I have it implemented, but I'm working on a solution to make that experience better and different. So everything, just working on the tiny little detail tweaks that I think will make a big difference in the production and satisfaction.
Yeah. And also real quick, you mentioned you're already looking at hiring another person.
Yeah. So I think that I kind of want to redo part of the process. I'm learning a little bit, and I want to redo part of the process. So my assistant is really, really good, and I want her to take on more of like the processing kind of director of operations type role, and the second person will do more kind of proactive annual review type things. Like I like the total cost analysis type things, where you can do an annual review and put something together and brand it and do that sort of thing. Just don't have the time of the day to do it. They'll help me with some of my marketing outreach. They'll kind of be a catch-all director of first impression type of person.
Oh, nice.
All the way down to stuffing envelopes and sending out mailers and it's going to be
more on the business side.
On the business side.
Yep.
Yes.
Very nice. Very cool, man. Good.
It's probably long-winded, but that's.
No, I appreciate the details. That's very good.
Totally.
Awesome. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, man, what was the best place to reach to send them? Facebook, your website? What do you want to do?
Yeah, just go to Instagram or Facebook and find me, Dan Anchetta. I think it's Dan Anchetta _home loans on Instagram.
We'll put links in there too, by the way.
Yeah, and I'm like open book. So if anyone wants to chat, like I'll give you my cell number. Find me on LinkedIn. It has all my contact info there, and I'm happy to talk with whoever and do what I can to help everyone.
Nice, man.
Cool.
Well, look, I mean, it's again back to congratulations to you for the fast track to success, right? Just 3 years in the biz, 80 plus units, and you're going to grow even more in 2020. And you got smart and realized that in order for you to scale and grow, right, you had to have help and have an assistant. So I think you did that earlier than most people do. Man, so
thanks. Yeah, I this whole thing, I just kind of stumbled into it, to be honest with you. I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just kind of figuring it out as I go, and appreciate you reaching out and us getting together.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to, the whole point of this interview was to just kind of bring people into the discussion about hiring your first assistant, getting over the hump to do that. There's a number of LOs I'm working with right now that are actually in process to do that. That's the way you're going to grow, because that's, like you alluded to earlier, on that roller coaster ride of originate process.
Exactly.
That cannot continue if you're ever going to really, have a real business.
Exactly. And I think that was the moment for me. I was like, I got to do this differently. And Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I just shut my mouth and listened to other smart people who had done it and just did what they said to do.
Right on, right on. Well, look, man, I appreciate you making time. And listeners,
sure.
as always, thank you for tuning in. And you know what to do. Hey, if you like this episode or others, leave us a review, and we will see you on the next one.